Here is our Romeo and Juliet Act 5 discussion.
Okay, so the first thing that we want to talk about is, first of all, most of you watched the video version, and in the video version, it's a little confusing because Benvolio is the one that brings news to Romeo, not Balthazar. So Balthazar in the play is actually the one that brings the news to Romeo that Juliet is dead. And so how does Romeo react? So looking at it in the play, Romeo is really excited that he sees Balthazar, and he says, "News from Verona." He kind of asks how his family is. He asks how Juliet is, and Balthazar responds, "She is well and nothing can be ill. Her body sleeps in Capulet's monument, and her immortal part lives with angels' lives." So he kind of says, like, he doesn't really know about the plan or anything, so he just says she's dead. Like, nothing ill can come her.
Yeah, so he probably saw the funeral procession where she's being carried down the street to the burial vault, and so he thinks she's really dead and doesn't understand that it's just looking like she's dead.
And this is obviously the first piece of information that Romeo has ever received about Juliet, so he hasn't heard any of Friar's plans at all. So then how is Romeo going to react to that? That's a big part of the play. He says, "Come hither, man." He's talking to a poor person. Does it say specifically?
He's an apothecary, which is like a pharmacist. He makes medicines.
Yeah, okay. He just says, he offers him money, says, "Let me have a dram of poison, such soon speeding gear as will disperse itself through all the veins, that the life-weary taker may fall dead." So he kind of just continues on there. Essentially, his reaction is, "I'm going to kill myself. Like, I'm done."
Yeah, if I can't be with her, there's no reason to live.
Yeah. Which is not how you should react.
Well, and the apothecary doesn't want to sell it to him because it's against the law, and he could be put in big trouble for it. And Romeo says, "Well, look how poor you are.
And I have money.
Just take my money and buy some food and be happy, and just realize you're helping me. You're not hurting me."
So the question 2 talks about what went wrong with Friar's plan. So kind of leading up to this, I want to read a little bit of this translation from the slides that we used at the beginning. So Friar John is, he's going out to find another poor friar or ordered to accompany. So he's trying to find someone to go with him. And he says here, he was here in the city visiting the sick. So when he found him, the town health officials suspected that they were both in the house that had been hit with the plague. So let's pause for a second and talk about that plague, because I feel like it's kind of relevant maybe to what we are dealing with here. So the plague they're talking about here is the bubonic plague. And that we looked up numbers of that, and it killed over 200 million people, right?
Right.
And that was just mostly in Europe. That was not even necessarily worldwide. It was they call it the Black Plague, and it was a really big deal. So they basically quarantined this house. He says they sealed up the doors and they wouldn't let him out because he didn't do his social distancing. So see what happens when you don't follow the rules.
Stay safe, stay home.
That's right. So he basically tells Friar John tells Friar Lawrence, "I couldn't go to Mantua because I was stuck there. I was stuck in this house." And Friar Lawrence says, "Who bear my letter then to Romeo?" So then Friar John, probably kind of embarrassed, I would imagine, says, "I couldn't send it. Here it is again." Like, he hands it back to him and says, "Nor get a messenger to bring it thee, so fearful were they of infection." So they were so afraid that he had been exposed to that plague that they wouldn't let him get the letter to Romeo.
Or even get somebody else to take the letter back to Friar Lawrence.
Right.
So meanwhile, Romeo hasn't gotten the message he's supposed to get.
Right. So he never got that letter to Romeo, and Romeo had no idea that Juliet was really not dead.
So Romeo goes to Juliet's vault. So the burial vault is it's shown in the movie as like an underground tomb. And it's common, I don't know if you've ever learned about the Italian catacombs. It's underground tunnels where they buried their dead. So it wasn't like dig a hole in the earth and then pile dirt on top of them. It's more like underground caves with little shelves or niches carved out where they can put the dead bodies while they're decomposing, and then eventually they'll take those bones away and put them in in a different room and put the fresh bodies out there. And so it shows it as a pretty luxurious, basically underground church where Juliet's buried. And really, it's not like she's in a casket or anything like that. So anyway, Romeo goes to be with Juliet and die where she is dead. But when he gets there, Paris is there. Now, Paris wanted to marry Juliet, and so he has gone that night to take flowers to lay on her grave. And so he's there at the door, and then Romeo sees him there and goes in and says, Romeo says, I just want to get in there. Actually, he has gone with a crowbar, now that I remember, and is trying to open the door, and Paris has stepped back when he's heard somebody coming, and he sees Romeo doing this. He knows that Romeo is a Montague and an enemy to the Capulets, doesn't know that he loves Juliet, and thinks he's going to do some vandalism. What?
Or that they were married.
Or that they were married, yeah. So he's going to defend the honor of his dead wife and goes to fight Romeo. So when they meet, Paris is the one who starts the fight. And Romeo says, I just want to get in there and lie with Juliet. And Paris can't understand why. And they have a sword fight, and Romeo kills Paris.
I always thought this was actually one of the sadder parts of the play, because Paris is legitimately innocent.
Yep.
You know, he's done nothing to deserve losing his life over.
Right.
So after Paris is killed, Romeo gets into the tomb. He finds Juliet. He kind of expresses some of his feelings about her and talks about how she's still so beautiful even though she's dead, which obviously as an audience we know that she's not dead, right? But he drinks the poison that he had bought and dies. And shortly after, at least in the play, Juliet wakes up. She doesn't actually get to speak with him, which I guess she does in the movie. But in the play, she does not. So she wakes up, she sees Romeo dead, and she says, What's here, a cup closed in my true love's hand? Poison, I see, hath been his timeless end. O churl, drunk all, and left no friendly drop to help me after. I will kiss thy lips. Haply some poison yet doth hang on them to make me die with a restorative. Thy lips are warm. So she says, oh, he drank the poison. He's dead. Maybe there's still some poison on his lips that she can kiss off and die, but there isn't. So she decides that she wants to die. She hears people outside, and she says, Yea, noise, then I'll be brief. O happy dagger, this is thy sheath. There rust, and let me die. And then she stabs herself.
And I love the part, I mean, it's really significant. Maybe I don't love it so much, but when she says, thy lips are warm, she kisses him to try to get some poison and realizes that he just barely died. And how sad that she just missed him by that much. And in the movie, it makes it even more dramatic, where he's still alive and it's too late to do anything about it. But they have this conversation and this last kiss, and then she's not really with it yet because she's just still waking up, doesn't realize what's happened, and then he collapses on the ground there.
I think this section is really interesting because it shows how deep Shakespeare's writing is. Because the way they die is not random. He didn't just pick two things out of a hat. So the poison from a cup, not the poison part, but the cup, in Shakespeare's time was symbolic, like it was a symbol of women. And the dagger was a symbol of men. And so the fact he used the cup, she used the dagger, it sort of shows that they were each other's undoing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's an insight I hadn't ever heard before. Yeah. That's cool.
I like that. So Friar Lawrence's, question 5 says, Friar Lawrence's messenger, Friar John, is unable to deliver the message about Juliet's fake death to Romeo in Mantua. The reason Friar John can't deliver the message, like we talked about, is because of those circumstances. Friar John was unable to deliver the message because he was forced into quarantine. As he traveled, he found himself in a town that was suspected to have the Black Plague, and he was confined to his house, or to a house, and this has an enormous impact on the entire course of the story. So how has quarantine affected your own life or the lives of your family? And this says explain in at least one full paragraph. What do you guys think? Do you want to share a little bit about how quarantine has affected your lives?
I actually want to point out one other thing. You know, it only delayed him like a day. because the bubonic plague, they would show symptoms within a day of exposure, where they start to get these buboes, these pustules swelling up on their bodies and things. Here, the quarantine, it's a 2-week quarantine now. Fortunately, it wasn't in those days, or else it all would have happened before then. Before Friar Lawrence even knew. Sorry.
Well, I know that, like, I am up here in Tremont. I am by myself, so I didn't want to quarantine by myself. So I was like, well, I'm out. I'm out of Tremont, and I'm going to go be with family, because if I'm going to be quarantined, I would go insane by myself. So that's one way it's affected my life.
Well, and I think the huge one is the school thing, that we're having to do school on the computer instead of working with students face to face.
It's hard.
It's hard for us too. Like it's hard for you guys, but it's also
it's not a coronication.
No.
Like some of you have said. I hope you're enjoying your free time. It's harder work some way. Yeah.
Definitely more work.
When I actually get to work with a student on the computer and stuff, it's like I get almost emotional about it.
Yeah.
Like, I get to actually teach somebody.
Jump on our office hours.
Google Meet with us.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, then the last question is the ending fitting. Use evidence to support your answer. Be sure to answer in complete sentences. You may earn 1 to 3 points depending on the depth of your thinking, level of evidence, and attention to conventions. So you will need to really refer to some specifics from the play in order to get the full 3 points.
Make sure you
Actually, it's 2 points. Yeah. But anyway.
You could get 1 additional. Make sure you use proper grammar, right? That's what they mean by conventions. Make sure you're using capital letters, and make sure you're using commas and semicolons.
And complete sentences.
Complete sentences, yep. Periods at the end, those things.
Okay, hope you enjoyed Romeo and Juliet. We're sad we didn't get to do the full treatment with reading the script together in class and discussing it, but hopefully you learned enough from it that you'll have a feeling for Shakespeare.
Be safe, guys.
Bye, guys.